Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this meeting of the Cabinet. First of all, an apology on my behalf. As you will hear, my voice is rapidly disappearing, and therefore I don't propose to say any more than I absolutely have to this evening. One thing I do have to say is, first of all, that there are no fire alarms scheduled for this evening. Therefore, if the fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the building immediately. The fire exits are located at the rear and the side of this room. Go down the stairs and meet in Moore Memorial Park. Please note also that this webcast is being, that this meeting is being webcast live on the internet. I assume that is actually happening. And then one other final thing, please could you make sure that all your mobiles are on silent and put away, so that we don't get vibrations coming off the tables or anything else at that stage. Good. That said, we move on to the agenda. Apologies for absence. There are none. Declarations of interest. Councillor John Wardner.
Leader, I should give notice that many down executive committee members will have to withdraw for paper G.
Indeed they shall, and we shall say goodbye to you at that particular moment in time. But as there are no public speakers this evening, we will take paper G in its order, and therefore we can make that run through in the running order. Minutes of the Cabinet meetings. We have two sets of minutes from the two meetings prior to Christmas, the 2nd and the 10th of December. Any comments on those minutes? If not, we'll take those as read, and I will sign them in due course after the meeting. Petitions, there are none, nor are there any urgent items. And so we can move directly to the proposals for the budget and policy framework for 2015-16. Councillor Isett.
Thank you, Leader. The paper presents the proposals for our budget for 2015-16. The proposals constitute a balanced budget with no increase in council tax for a 5th year in succession, but I'm pleased to say that we're maintaining and indeed enhancing the services we're going to be providing to our residents. This estimated budget is being achieved despite a 30% reduction in government grant, just under £1 million. I'm pleased and would congratulate the officers on finding further cost savings of just short of £1 million, £917,000. The capital expenditure that's estimated for 2015-16 is £10.169 million, and that will provide additional expenditure for CCTV, transport infrastructure, cemetery provision, future cemetery provision, and green initiatives. We've also established a capital fund of £4 million to deal with some of the housing issues that we face as a borough, and a £2 million reserve for economic development and council plan priorities. And also, I'm pleased that the budget contains proposals for a £975,000 revenue allocation for such good initiatives such as the community safety patrols and improvements to top of the town. I'd like to conclude by thanking all of those who responded to our formal consultation. That's all those individuals and parish councils. That's very much appreciated. We take note of what you said, and we are glad that our proposals meet with your overwhelming support. So on that note, I'd like to recommend these proposals to Cabinet.
Thank you very much, Councillor. That's it. Any comments from anybody at all? It's been discussed at great length and widely consulted on. The only other thing which I'd like to put on the table is, I keep liking to do this, is that there are very few increases in parking charges incorporated within the report. We therefore still remain with free car parking in the town centre, and one of the cheapest car parking rates that you will find in any borough in the south of England, and hopefully that will do enough to attract more and more people to go and shop here. Right, then we're agreed on that paper. Thank you very much. Item 7, approval of licensing fees and council and charges. Councillor Regis.
Thank you, Leader. This is just to ask Cabinet to recommend that Cabinet approve the private hire, Hackney carriage and scrap metal licence fees, which are all outlined in the report. So I move as per the paper.
Thank you very much. Any comments? Agreed on that? Very good. Thank you. Then the options for increasing the council's recycling rate. We have a supplementary paper which I should draw your attention to, which has been circulated. Councillor Eachus again, to introduce this, would you just explain to us what the supplementary does as opposed to the original report? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, the supplementary is just the following the fact that the Cabinet paper was written before this matter went to committee last Wednesday. So it just updates the Cabinet members on what was agreed at committee. Nothing has changed from the recommendations, and you'll see from the supplementary that committee did approve the recommendations. They did raise some questions in relation to food waste collection and a free garden waste service, which are not part of the recommendations, and they're being taken to committee at a later date. So this paper seeks Cabinet's recommendations on a number of issues that we hope will try and increase the recycling rate of this borough. So that's firstly that garden waste is banned from the residual waste bins with effect from the 1st of April. All recycling materials are banned from the residual waste bins with effect from the 1st of April. And those bans will then be dealt with as per a policy which are attached to Appendix A to the report. And the size of the replacement bins, they're the black bins, to existing properties, and the size of the bins to the new properties or new developments will be reduced from 240 litres down to 140, but any existing property that requires a replacement black bin will be given, as of the 1st of April, a 140 litre. And then lastly, we will be offering a 140 litre glass recycling bin as an alternative to the green crates you currently have. The first 1,000 will be offered free, and then the rest would be charged at £24.20. But I would just like to make clear, because I've had some inquiries on this bin does not replace the glass crates that you all currently have. You are entitled to continue to have those, and you're entitled to any number of those for free. If you want an extra one, you can contact the council for them. The red bins are just an optional extra if that's what you want. But I'm pleased to recommend these points to Cabinet and hope that you can agree them, and we can try and increase the recycling rate.
Thank you very much. How many bottles can you get in a 140 litre glass recycling bin? It's not 140 is the answer, and no doubt somebody can go and test it. But it's a lot for a couple of weeks. Yeah, even for me, it's quite a lot. Right, members. Any points? Any comments?
Well done. Keep plugging away. I'd like to support this.
Okay. We have to take some more initiatives to try and improve our recycling rate. I think it is very clear that a lot of the responsibility has to rest on all of us as residents of the borough to each do our bit to make this work, to make it happen. We don't want to be draconian in taking measures that are a bit like, that are above and beyond what should be the relationship between a service supplier, which is ourselves as a council, and residents. But equally, it is unfair that some residents should be penalised by increasing costs or by a low recycling rate because people do not take the time and effort to do what is actually a very simple thing to do. Councillor Giles, wouldn't you wish to add something?
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to say that having spoken to the Cabinet member previously, I think it's very important that what she proposes in terms of communicating what is recyclable and what is not to residents so that people are aware as to what they should put in their green bin or in their black bin needs to happen. I know it is happening, and that's very important. That, as you say, Leader, should help people take that personal responsibility to ensure they're sorting their waste properly. And indeed, it's important also that this authority is listening in the way it is in introducing the red bins, which people have said they want, and this administration has listened. So I'm very happy to support this paper.
Good. Thank you all very much then. I'm sure the education will be very valuable because it will actually enable domestic bliss to break out again in the Sanders household. Sorry, Councillor Eatus.
It was just to come back on what Councillor Geraldine said. It's correct. We're sending out a householder pack to every household in the borough before the 1st of April. So we will be explaining to residents what can and cannot be recycled. And the whole point of this is for us as a borough council to work with residents, not to come down tough on them, but to actually arrange and encourage face-to-face meetings. And so we get the information back from our, Viola as who is and who isn't recycling, so we can work with them instead of penalising them.
Thank you. So we're agreed. Agreed. Good. Item 9, which is paper E, the adoption of public spaces. Councillor Ruffell.
Leader, I'd like to move the recommendation as set out in paragraph 2. This matter was discussed extensively at the committee stage. Officers have looked into it in depth to see what can be done. In fact, there's only limited scope for action on a number of points, and they've been set out in the recommendation. And officers will play their part to continue to make sure that some of the issues that were raised don't occur where the council does have an influence. It should be, members should obviously remember that there are legal means of seeking redress in many of the instances that were explored by the committee, and therefore I'm content to move the recommendations as set out.
Thank you very much. Any comments? Otherwise, I think it's fairly straightforward and well discussed. Good. Then we will agree that. The next item is the Green Investment Fund, where again we have a supplementary report which updates Cabinet on the comments made by the Community Environment and Partnerships Committee at its meeting on the 21st of January. Councillor Eatus.
Thank you. Yes, this paper brings forward the recommendations to how to spend the Green Infrastructure Fund, which is a £900,000 fund to assist with reducing the borough's carbon emissions and help with our carbon footprint. I'm pleased to be able to say that we've worked hard on bringing together with the officers some recommendations. This has been to the climate panel, climate change panel and committee, and we've had support from all opposition members and from our own party, and it's all very positive. So I do recommend that we agree the recommendations as per the paper, so we can get on and start to get in touch with these local community organisations and residents who spend this money.
Thank you. It's been hanging around for long enough. But with these things, it does take time to work through the various possibilities that one could come out with, and it would have been wrong to have just leapt into doing something for the sake of doing something, which so many people seem to like to do. Any other comments, anybody? Or are we? I'm personally very happy to support this. Yep. Good. Okay. Then we can move on to the next item, which is the item at which some of our members will get up and leave us, which is the item 11, the local plan, housing and job numbers. And since there are no other items for discussion on the paper after that, we'll say good night to you. Oh, you're coming back, are you? Right, okay. Always known how to clear a room, Councillor Ruffell.
Thank you, Leader.
So,
Well, I'd like
over to you.
like to move the recommendation set out in paragraph 1.3. There's two recommendations there. This arose out of the fact that we had an exploratory meeting with the inspector on the 11th of December, which I think all who were involved felt was a successful and positive meeting, and the inspector made it clear that he wanted to assist us with having a local plan, and he made it clear to us that he was highlighting a potential obstacle in our way, which was that although he found the evidence that we had based our housing figure to be robust, the way we had looked at the evidence in terms of the housing trend from 2011 figures was perhaps pessimistic, and he felt that the economic trend over a longer period would be more optimistic than that. And he suggested that the evidence therefore would take us to a figure nearer to 850. He wasn't saying that was his decision, but what he was saying was that's where the evidence points us, and he would understand if that's where our thoughts were to take us when we'd consider the matter further. And to that end, we as a council agreed to engage with what he suggested to us. He put his suggestions in writing to us, and we've started the process whereby we look at the housing figure, and that will be a housing figure which is policy off. That's the new jargon, meaning that there are no policies which are reducing what the evidence would point us to the figure, that we're not reducing that figure down first of all, and then we then consider those constraints at a later meeting, which will be in the beginning of March, to consider whether there are sufficient constraints to reduce that figure, and then we move to deciding on which sites may be necessary, depending on what the outcome of that decision-making process is. So this is the first part of that process. The committee understood how we got to 850 based upon the robust evidence that we'd already had for some time. There were various views expressed, but there was broad support across a range of councillors from different backgrounds to taking the figure of 850 forward. As far as the agreeing to use a range of 450 to 600 as a starting point for further work to identify a jobs target for the borough, the inspector made it clear that we don't necessarily have to have a figure, it could be a range, but he felt that it was important that we looked at how our housing growth sat with our employment strategy and our economic strategy, and therefore some figures needed to be put in. And so we have looked at that based upon the evidence, and a range seems to be the most appropriate way of going forward, because it's not easy to calculate how many jobs will be created. As we know in our borough, businesses come and businesses go, and whilst we are economically very successful, we can't always say at any given moment how many new jobs will be created, and therefore a range seems more appropriate. And so for all of those reasons, I recommend to the Cabinet that we agree the recommendations.
Thank you very much. I mean, I note from the we have a supplementary report here which does report the comments of committee members during the meeting. There are a couple there which refer to the Enterprise M3 job growth targets, which actually, of course, is not a target in the first place. It is an aspiration of what might be achieved providing government was to provide significant amounts of additional infrastructure funding. And therefore, I think that is something which needs to be better explained the next time the committee meets, and I'm sure that can be done at that stage. I just think we should draw everybody's attention to the fact that in the Enterprise M3 Strategic Economic Plan, it very clearly says on page 24, acceleration of delivery would be achieved without an increase in local plan targets. And therefore that is definitive. So the local plan target is something which is the responsibility of the local authority, and this is what we are in the process of developing at this stage. In that case, I think this is just an interim report. We can note it and move forward. Yeah. Good. Thank you very much. That then concludes the business of this evening very efficiently, and I thank you for your presence, and conclude the meeting at 6:49, I think it is.